Cale Vinklarek, welcome to the podcast, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for being on this nice day and hosting us. First, I owe the podcast listeners nothing. I owe you nothing, podcast listeners, but I will say sorry because I took a break from the podcast. It's been, I don't know, a month since the last episode, maybe. My project manager at Marketing T was out on her maternity leave at the same time that her helper was in Europe. And so Andrea and I had to run like everything by ourselves for a minute, which was insane. And then we were just like working like crazy. I was traveling. So the good news is we are back to Strangers Worth Meeting. And I think we've got a great episode today because we're here with Cale in the land of Bastrop. Lovely little place, kind of in the Austin area, I guess. I mean, it's really the Austin area, is it not? I mean, it's kind of a suburb of
Austin's grown into it.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. But it's just a great place. We've got like a fall vibe happening right now. It's kind of cooling down finally. But anyway, tell me and tell the listeners a little about yourself. Came across you on Instagram because you do a very specific thing on your social media.
Yeah, so I'm a UPS driver, and delivering out in the country, everyone has dogs and random animals. And so I decided to start taking selfies with all the animals and calling them my customer of the day. Typically dogs, but sometimes I'll get the random kangaroo or a zebra. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I just started doing that and calling my customer of the day, trying to help people smile sometimes.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique thing, but you know, I came across it I think someone else had actually like reposted one of your TikToks or something that you had made about, I forget exactly which one it was, but I was just like, this is such a unique thing. And, you know, it seems like you've got some interests that are really cool that kind of align with ours. You know, obviously you've got your RV like right behind you there and you're going on a fishing trip, right? Today at some point?
Yeah, leaving today, be gone for a week. Going to the coast and just gonna kayak, fish, and live it up.
Yeah. So are you from this area originally?
My family has been in Bastrop for over 100 years.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we're kind of the originals.
Okay. And now you probably know Bastrop better than any of them because of your route, I assume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, this town, it's grown so much. You know, the what is now a little campus for just like kind of furthering people's education that don't do so well in high school used to actually be the main high school. Mm-hmm. And so it's crazy. You know, when I was in school, we had one high school. Since that time I've graduated, now we're at 2 high schools in Bastrop, thinking about a third. And so, yeah, it's just this town used to be very tiny, very small. You knew everyone, and now Austin is 50 yards away.
Right. So it's part of the Austin like sprawl then, right? Everybody that's moving into Austin, but you know, maybe they actually live in Bastrop and commute out there or
mm-hmm. It seems more like the people that moved to Austin within the past like 2 years, they're the ones moving out here. Mm-hmm. As you know, all the other people are moving into Austin to try to get the whole Austin vibe. You have the people that were in Austin slowly moving out here to venture out a little bit.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing that's been happening in this state, man.
It's crazy.
It's real unique. And, you know, for anybody who hasn't been to Texas before, you know, Andrea and I have had a good chance to spend a lot of time out here over the last couple of years being on the road. And, I mean, it's its own country. It is just, it's massive for one thing. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, we've driven across it end to end, and it takes a minute to get all the way across it. And then you've got so many different, like, sub-areas of it. Like, Houston felt like entirely its own thing. The Dallas-Fort Worth thing is, again, it's a totally different vibe, and so was Austin. And then you got Hill Country. You have the East Texas kind of foresty, I don't know, basically Louisiana vibe. There's just about anything you could want here, really. But you've certainly got, I guess, I was going to say you've picked the best place, but this is just sort of where you are, man. This is like your home.
Yeah, Bastrop's like a unique little place. You know, it's called the Lost Pines, you know, because we have all the pine trees that everyone thought would be on the Houston, you know, area, the Bayou, Louisiana type area, East Texas, and all of a sudden there's this huge pocket of them in Bastrop.
Right.
And, you know, we have the hills here where I live, got the river running through. It's just an interesting unique little place.
Yeah, it's cool, man. I'm glad we get to have the chance to come out here. So UPS driving, how did you get involved with that initially?
So I was in business school at Texas A&M, decided to drop out of that after 2 years. My uncle is an 18-wheeler driver at UPS, and I was fishing with him one day, and he said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I have no clue. He said, you should work at UPS. And I was like, I guess I'd give it a shot. You never even crossed my mind. And worked in the building loading trucks for about a year. Thought about going back to school, and as soon as I was about to go back to school, I got the phone call, hey, you want to start driving? Figured if I'm going to go back to school now, I can go back later. Gave driving a shot and fell in love with it, and it's been 16 years now.
Yeah, wow, man. I feel like there's a roadrunner over there, I think. Just spotted him, okay. Sorry, people.
Oh, you're good.
It is morning, the coffee's going, and my, ADHD is just going to kick right up for this. I feel like I want to know more about like how that turned into a career thing for you, because like it's got to be interesting. How do you keep it like fresh does it always feel like the same thing, or like what keeps you doing it?
So UPS is all about seniority. We pick our routes every 2 to 3 years. Every route goes up for bid, and the most seniority guy, he starts and just works its way down the list.
Oh, okay.
And so every 2 to 3 years, you have the opportunity to change your route up. But as a low seniority guy, you get kind of the worst routes, I guess. And so I started out downtown Round Rock, 300 deliveries a day, nothing but businesses, slammed. And now I have enough seniority to where I'm way out in the country, delivering to ranchers all day. And it's never the same day out in the country, because one day you'll have one county road that takes 30 minutes to drive down, and it's a Longhorn ranch. The next day you'll have another county road that takes 45 minutes to drive down, and it's an exotic game ranch with all kinds of crazy deer. So my route definitely keeps it interesting every single day.
Yeah, it's kind of an adventure.
Yeah.
And you get to see all these places that the rest of us don't even go down. Like, it's like, hey, don't drive down that road. You're entering private property.
Mm-hmm.
You get to kind of do that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And you get to meet people, I assume. My experience of farm life is like, if someone's around the farm, you're going to have a chat. You're going to sit down and hang out for a little while. It's a slower pace, which has got to be nice. And you get to see all the dogs. You must be quite a dog guy. Do they take to you?
For some reason, I've been bit once,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously it was a Chihuahua. But every other dog seems fine. They might bark at first, but then once I start talking to them,
Right.
all of a sudden I'm like, oh, he's one of us. He's cool.
Yeah. Takes some getting used to. I feel like with dogs, I didn't grow up with dogs. My folks got a dog the second I moved out for college, which was great. I begged my entire life for a dog, right? But I was always comfortable with them. And then I got bit like 2 years ago or something like that, Andrea, 2 years-ish. Yeah. And now I'm like pretty cautious when it comes to a dog I don't know, because I didn't think I had done anything wrong. This dog's just a little kooky and just, went for it. But, I think for me, so I'll go running a lot, and I grew up kind of out in the country running by places, and it was always like, you never knew if you were about to run by the farmhouse where the dog would come out. And they don't like it's the action of running, I think, that seems like a problem to them. So I was always very aware of that. I can't imagine just rolling up like you do to these farms and being like, all right, I'll just deal with this now.
Well, it's interesting for me because I start later in the day. So I work out of what UPS calls a satellite. So UPS rents a parking lot basically from a company. We keep a couple trucks out there. Someone from the Austin building will bring us our packages in the morning, later in the afternoon almost. So I don't even start my day really until noon.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have, 10, 12-hour day. So I'm delivering late at night. So it's very interesting when you pull up to someone's house in a loud truck, it's pitch black, and they have 4 or 5 dogs running around somewhere.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but farm dogs are always the happiest dogs to me in a way, because they have a utility. They have a real purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They know this is my land. This this is what I do on it. I protect it or whatever. I always feel like I don't know. They're just always the best dogs. They may be a little skittish with you at first, but after that, they're kind of busy in a weird way, right? Like I feel like farm dogs often they'll pay some attention to you at first, but if you hang out on a farm for a little while, they're like, all right, I gotta go. I got work over here to do. You know?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's that them being outdoors almost 24/7, most of them being around other animals.
Right.
They get to go on adventures, I guess, being outdoors. So maybe that's what makes them happier. Whereas inside dogs are looking at the outside through a window, so maybe they're just angrier that way.
Yeah. Well, we all are, I feel like, you
Yeah.
know. I think that's I know you know that because I know you go fishing and hunting and all these things and you get that, and we've sort of learned that ourselves as well on our own journey. Like we want to spend a lot of time outside. We just want to, and I got to imagine like even driving your routes, like you get more of that sense of being outside. You get to move around, you get to carry things and put them places. Like it's far more natural to humans than even what I do on my worst days, which is sit in front of that computer for 8 hours answering emails. It's not natural at all. It makes me angry.
Yeah. I think that's one of the good things why I left business school. I could never see myself sitting at a desk for 8 or 10 hours now. I'm like, nope, I have to be outdoors.
Yeah. There's levels of it, though. I mean, it can be okay. I think the best thing we ever did was start our own company because then you set the schedule and you get a lot more freedom like that. We can take off on a Monday if we want to and just go have fun. But there's levels to it. But the odds were certainly against us being able to do that.
Yeah.
Much better odds that I was going to be trapped, chained to a desk for like a long time following that path. So I guess I got lucky. Yeah. But, I mean, if you're going to be outside, this is probably the best place to do it in. You all actually have seasons here, which is pretty cool. Does it get pretty sketchy in the winter ever? Do you have to make your routes when there's not a whole lot of snow here, I guess? Probably didn't get that sketchy.
Lately, it seems like every other year we have one of those crazy storms that is just like snow and ice.
Right.
And it seems like lately it's gotten to every other year, and it's like 1 week early to mid-February. And it's like last year we had one, I guess it was last year.
Yeah, last year's was the real bad one, right? When
Yeah,
Austin lost
2020,
power.
2021.
Yeah.
February 2021. And it was like a week, and like we had a foot of snow in our yard.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
So did you still have to go out and, like, how does it work? Do they...
I got lucky, and I was actually on vacation that week.
Oh, man.
So I lucked out. But I think most drivers end up with like 3 days off. 3 days they didn't even try to run routes because they knew the roads were so messed up. They didn't even want to attempt it. So, yeah, I think they didn't run routes for like 3 days.
Yeah.
Because, Texas, our roads aren't built for it.
No.
Our vehicles aren't built for it.
You don't have the plows to handle it.
Yeah.
No, it was gnarly. We were in Albuquerque when that hit last year, and so we were really still just on the edge of it. But I know it was really bad here, and even out there, it was like the water was all shut down. The power would kind of come and go. It was a little dicey. That was a really, really bad storm, man.
Yeah.
And Andrea's uncle, who lives out in Austin, was just living off generators, and hopefully you've got some frozen food and stuff, and hopefully you can keep it frozen. And it was a real mess for a minute. But I think, I don't know, sometimes it's good to be faced with a challenge like that, because it makes you realize, like, oh, I need to be actually prepared for this thing. I always feel like we have it the best, like this hurricane that just hit down in Florida. Pretty rough stuff, and we go down to that area like a lot. Andrew's dad lives out there. So, but I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, if we knew a weather event was coming like that, we could pretty much be gone within an hour and be like, let's head over to the next state. It's really kind of easy when you have your whole life in just a little box like we do, I guess. There's something really nice about that. And you guys have your little bug out vehicle too with the RV, so you get it.
Well, and we have solar panels, and I think that's one of the main reasons we didn't lose power during that storm, because I know like 2 streets over, no one had power, but our house and our neighbors did. And our solar panels are rigged up so that they push back through the power lines. And so the electric company here like buys power back from us if we're putting off too much.
Right.
And I think that kept us from losing power But you're talking about bug out. I'm like, I was just telling my wife the other day, I was like, we got to figure out how I can like quick disconnect at least 3 or 4 of those solar panels to take with us.
Yeah. Mount them up on the roof and wire it up. And we also we did a whole lot of things that we could boondock for like a good long amount of time and still live and work and stuff. So I installed a power inverter in our RV so we can run the RV off of our batteries. And we got 2 really nice lithium batteries so that we can like actually do that. We even put in a deep freezer in the RV for all of our meat, so I can run my deep freezer off of my batteries, which is a pretty cool way to do it. And you can literally drive the next day and the alternator will recharge the batteries. So it's given us like a level of, I don't know what that is. Is that like a security? Is it like a guy thing? Like I just want to know that I can handle whatever happens, or I don't know what it is.
I think so. Yeah, it's a guy thing, or probably is, but knowing that you're able to take care of yourself and your family if the need arises,
Right.
You'd rather be prepared and know that you can take care of people rather than be worried of what's going to happen when something does happen.
Well, it gets scary when those weather events start to happen and you think about all the different ways that you're not prepared. Like even us, I'd argue that we got it pretty good. The house is on wheels, man. We can go about anywhere. If the gas stations are running, if we can get fresh water. Like I hate those infographics that you see on like Instagram that are like, here's how long it would take for you to not have fresh water if trucking stopped or whatever. Like all these different things that you're like, wow, this is fragile as fuck, man.
Yeah.
Like that scares me. It bothers me. And there's only so much you can really do. Like I don't know. Part of me thinks the whole goal is like, all right, let's get a ranch and just like build it up and get ready. But then I don't think you're going to live your best life if you're always preparing for the end times, I guess.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like you hear all about all those preppers, and it's like I told my wife, like I don't want to be one of those preppers,
right?
But I wouldn't mind having an attic full of canned food, water purifying systems, at least 2 or 3 of those, and wouldn't mind being a little prepared.
But there's all these things that it's like you have to prepare for so many different possibilities that it feels totally impossible.
Yeah.
As soon as you feel like you got one thing, and then all those community, like if you go on Reddit and read like the prepper, community or whatever subreddit, they argue back and forth about like what is the thing you need. So like some of them are like hardcore on like water. You need to store water. You need to know someone with like private water rights and all these crazy things. And some of them are like, you need food and you need to be able to hunt, or you need the RV, you need power. Like I don't even know where to start, man, but it seems like $1 million venture to just like outfit yourself to survive for, I don't know, a week. And you talk about like a real bad scenario. They all talk about the shit hits the fan scenario. And it's like, you're going to make it about a week. I mean, you don't have a lot more longevity than that. At some point, something's going to go sideways on you, or other people are going to go sideways on you. This is kind of I didn't mean to take us down this dark path. I think about this shit a lot.
Well, now I'm thinking about, Walking Dead. And, when I was first started watching Walking Dead, I'm like, okay, interesting. Okay, so if that happens, I need to have that supply, that supply. Okay, got it,
Yeah, the zombie one that's a scary one. That's always, we just watched World War Z the other day. That's the Brad Pitt one,
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's honestly, it's one of the better zombie movies. It's because they capture like the spirit of like mass, I don't know, just the massive bodies. Like the whole thing is like, they do these big zoomed out shots of like all these zombies that are sort of turned into ants in a way, because they don't think as individuals anymore, and so they can like crawl up big walls together because they don't mind being squashed or trampled. You know what I mean? They only have one goal, which is to eat people or whatever. So, or bite people, I guess. But yeah, a situation like that, I mean, good luck, man.
Yeah.
But I feel like the nice thing thinking about that though is that zombie is one of the more unrealistic
for sure.
versions, right?
Yeah.
As far as we know, you need like to have a heartbeat. You need to like consume calories. You have to do things to keep an organism alive. So, we're going down an interesting road today.
Yeah.
This is, I'd like to say it's your fault. I don't think it is. I think it's my fault. But clearly this is what's been on my mind lately. I think something about if you've never done this, like going out, camping out, getting away from civilization, and part of that is, we were just in Houston, now we're out in the country, makes you think about these kinds of things. Makes you think about self-sufficiency, because it's not all handed to you.
Yeah.
You actually have to solve problems. And there's people who live their whole lives in a system, in a city, everything's provided, and they don't even have to confront this concept at all.
Yeah. Like at our family ranch, like we have the water wells, we raise cattle, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And, growing up with that, you're put in different scenarios. You hurt yourself when you're a mile away from the truck and everyone else or something like that. And then, I lived in Austin for a year, and it's completely different.
Right.
You walk 50 feet and you're in a grocery store with everything supplied to you.
Right.
And then, so coming back out here, when I moved back to Bastrop after that year living in Austin, I moved out to 23 acres, and I'm like, yeah, I can never move back in the city. Like, it's better to be able to do things for yourself. To go down a different path.
Yeah.
I feel like people aren't prepared for that anymore these days, Everyone, you go to HEB or whatever, you get all your stuff, and then you talk about doomsday, something bad happening, no one knows how to grow vegetables.
Right.
No one knows how to, was it salt meat to make it
Sure.
last longer or whatever, I don't even know how to do that.
whatever.
Yeah, I take our steers that we have butchered, I take them to the butcher. They do it for me.
Right.
And so.
But you go hunting, right? So, I mean, you know how to quarter out an animal and deal with it. And some people will never have that experience. And it, I don't know. We could go way down the hunting rabbit hole. I've done that a lot lately because it's always so fascinating to me to talk about. But I like it in this context. I like it in the context of thinking about, like, what would you do, Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, Andrea and I now have so much experience with different animals that I'd feel comfortable with just about any one of them. And so last time we were in Bastrop, we were trying to go hog hunting. The hogs weren't showing up, like they do. They're there when you don't need them to be. And, of course, they're gone the day you're like, all right, let's bust out the rifle. We ended up actually I went raccoon hunting, and I got a raccoon, and that was a first. And, you work with small game, you learn so much about how to, especially with raccoons, like how to deal with the fur and the hide, and just like, could I make something out of this?
Yeah.
We ended up making a hat. That's really cool. Never done that, How about this meat? How do you cook meat that's not even choice meat? It's sort of a last resort meat. And we learned how to cook it, and hey, it tasted pretty good. You got to do some work on it, but there you go. And every time I have an experience like that, it gives me a different relationship to the steak or the burgers that I pick up from the store, because I know what kind of work went into that. I know that I'm only somewhat set up to do that kind of work. But again, in like a bad scenario, I could go feed us today. There are 100 raccoons on that land. I could go pop one, and I know how to do that, and I know how to feed us, and make a hat for the next giant winter storm that comes through Bastrop. How much of that can any average person do? It's cool to test yourself and to learn those things, and it takes fucking time.
Yeah.
And that's probably the hardest part of it. But fishing's kind of the same way.
Yeah. And for me, so I do what's called wade fishing.
Okay.
So you go out, you're waist, sometimes chest deep, in a bay. Sharks could swim by at any point. You could step on a stingray and get a barb in your foot. So it definitely keeps you on your toes wade fishing. And I feel like that gives you like a whole different like connection to nature, really, because you're in it. And with wade fishing, if you move too fast, you could easily step on an oyster, cut your foot open, trip, fall, whatever. And so you have to move slow when you wade fish. And I feel like that just takes you deeper into the whole nature aspect of it. And I feel like that's why I fell in love with it, just because you're in it.
That's interesting. I know very little about saltwater fishing. Hopefully we'll get to learn at some point. But what kind of things do you catch out there?
So I just started saltwater fishing about 1.5 years ago. Okay. But when I did, I dove in head first. Yeah. After I caught my first speckled trout, I was like, yep, I'm in. Let's do this. So you have speckled trout. You have redfish, flounder, gaff top, which is basically a saltwater catfish. Then there's all kinds of other just little fish. You got to be in the right spot for tarpon. Wade fishing, I don't really think you're going to catch tarpon.
I thought flounder you mostly caught with a spear.
Yeah, you can go. So most people do flounder gigging at night.
Right.
And so
troll around
they have the lights. Like a lot of people do it. They'll get out of the boat and kind of walk with this little light and kind of move it back and forth. kind of like a figure 8 motion, and then you get your little three-prong spear and
Yeah.
try to find the eyes and go for it.
Yeah. And you have to correct for the angle of the water and all that stuff. It seems very difficult to me, man.
And also, you gotta, because we have size limits. So also, you gotta be like, you have to know to judge. Okay, if the water's this deep, it's gonna look this much bigger or smaller. So yeah, I've only been flounder gigging once. It wasn't really my thing. I'm more of, I want to take this piece of plastic, this soft plastic lure, and I want to trick the fish to thinking it's their natural food. Because there's just something more to that of, I didn't use live bait, I didn't use dead bait, I didn't spear it. I made this plastic move just the right way that a fish wanted to eat it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, a little bit more bragging rights when you catch a big trophy like that,
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I think it's funny how, like, if you've never been hunting or fishing, it's already hard enough. And then you start to develop levels of sportsmanship into it, which just makes it harder.
Yeah.
And Andrea and I go bow hunting, and that's already a degree of making it harder. But then I don't know. I see dudes with like who do like muzzle loader season and all that stuff. And I'm like, I can't imagine making it even hard. Like, we try to make it impossible almost, because there's something about the pride of it. There's something about doing it right, and even there's something about making it more fair between you and the animal that I think I really like. As long as you're gonna make it an easy death for them, that's obviously number one. Like, I'm not gonna go bow hunt a squirrel because that doesn't seem all that nice for the squirrel generally. Much nicer to them to get the 22 out and do it right.
Right.
But I don't know, with the big game, you want to like meet them where they're at, I guess, and recognize their abilities, and then use your brain to sort of outthink and outsmart. And but fishing. So I hadn't been fishing in years. I grew up fishing, lived across from a lake, and so like I went all the time. It was always catch and release. And so we just went out to Missouri with a friend who we caught some crappie and some bluegill out at their place. And I honestly have never had a more delicious fish. Like, I was completely surprised by it. It's the mildest thing like I've ever tasted, just crappie and bluegill. You don't even really think about it, because bluegill especially are kind of like, they're kind of slimy and nasty, But man, it's some of the best like stuff in my freezer. It's the stuff I'm honestly most excited about in the freezer. Do you feel that way with the saltwater fish too? Like, do you love eating them? Do you catch and release, or do you take them all home?
So with the big freeze that we had, their estimation is that 45% of the trout population died.
Whoa!
Because they didn't do, they can't handle the freezing cold water. Redfish took it better, but yeah, they say about 45%. So lately, and that was right when I started fishing too. I started out like, got to get the limit, got to have the full stringer. And then I found some podcast that talked about the conservation aspect of it and kind of the science behind conservation. And then I dove headfirst into that.
Really?
So now I'm all about catch and release. I think just this year in 2022, I've only kept 3 trout, and some days I'll go out there and catch, 40.
Right.
And I might bring one home, but trout, I love making fresh tacos.
Yeah.
Man, trout, especially the speckled trout, if you catch like a 17 to 18, I find are the best. Anything over like 22 inches, doesn't like more gamier. But man, that 17, 18-inch trout, bring it home fresh, fried up for tacos, can't beat it.
Yeah. It took some getting used to for me to eat what I had caught. Weirdly, I appreciate it. You don't realize just how mild all the food is that you eat.
Yeah.
As opposed to eating like a real animal that was out there fighting to survive, living and working. And when you take it home and you butcher it up yourself and you cook it, and what it looked like before it was that filet, or what it looked like before it was that steak. And that's a different feeling. And it took me a little while to get used to it and get over that as I was eating, honestly. But it's gotten better. It just takes practice, I think. And again, in that situation, like we were talking about, where you're starving, you're not going to care for a second.
Yeah.
You're just going to want food.
Yeah.
And you're going to want meat, generally.
Well, growing up around cattle, I see my dad, my grandpa as, big manly men, and I see myself, sometimes as a manly man. But my sister-in-law gave one of our bull calves a name. None of us could butcher it.
Yeah.
And it has a name now. And so you saw a bunch of men like, nope, can't eat that one. He has a name now.
That's funny.
So, but yeah, it kind of goes back to that. You see it before, and you're like, nope, that's Fred. Can't eat him.
Yeah.
So now we call them by numbers. Meat 1, meat 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it helps. It helps.
Yeah.
Psychologically gives you some distance that you need because it is what it is. I was just reading this old British book called All Creatures Great and Small. It was like a huge book, and they made a TV show out of it. They're making a new TV show out of it, which is terrible. But the older one from we watched the one from the 70s. It's so good. It's about this vet in England who, works on farms, and it handles all the calving and all the times cows get sick and pigs and horses. And it was just a fascinating story. And I think there was less of what you're talking about at that time period because those folks would be really connected to those animals and wouldn't really mind, because it was just the way of life. That's just how you do things. If you're raised like that, it's got to help. But I can understand the idea of something becoming a pet versus your meal, or your meal ticket rather. Yeah. But I didn't have any pets, so I can't really speak to that, I guess. Maybe I'm just like a psychopath and it doesn't bother me.
Oh, we grew up with the cows, the horses. We did chickens once, but after they pooped on everything, my dad got rid of those real fast.
That's funny.
But yeah, I kind of grew up out in the country, and you get to the hunting part, and I've only killed 5 deer my entire life because you kind of go to that, like you said, the sportsmanship of it. And half the time I'll see a young deer, and I'm like, nope, he's walking, even if that's the only one I see all season. But yeah, bow hunting is something I want to get into. I've always been a rifle hunter, but I want to bow hunt because, like you said, you kind of give the animal the bigger advantage. It makes it tougher on you, which makes it more of a challenge.
It's interesting, man. I don't know. We've gone one season, so I'm no expert in it. But it was really, really challenging, particularly just to get them as close as you need them to be because, deer do not like to cooperate with that. And it's just a very intense thing to do it. I had several misses, because it's a bow and your entire body is just so charged up in those moments. And unfortunately, we lost the buck that I believe I took a good shot on and, couldn't recover him. Looked for 2 days, just no luck. So we're going to go back out there and hope for a better result this year. But I've learned some things, and it's because honestly of small game hunting that I learned some things about the level of focus you need to have when you're taking a shot while hunting is nothing I had ever experienced before. And I feel like a gun helps you feel that better in a way because you've got the crosshairs and for sure if you messed up, what you thought was a good shot because you didn't make the shot, you know? And there's something about feeling that. And so when Andrea, she just went out on her first squirrel hunt a couple months ago, and I had told her okay, here's what I learned doing this, which was in that moment when you've got those crosshairs on, you just need to focus all of you can't think about a single other thing. Everything has to be on keeping those crosshairs on. Don't even think about what's happening with the trigger. It's just happening. It's all about those crosshairs. And I don't know. I can't think of any. Can you think of any other experience that requires that degree of focus?
Not really. I mean, because and also you got to control the breathing and all that. And I grew up, my dad taught me, take a deep breath, and as you exhale, that's when you pull the trigger because your body kind of goes down, which and like you said, sometimes you missed because I feel myself move for the recoil before it even happens, and you're like, yep, I completely shot over that deer. Yeah,
that's one of the. I know that's something that they do in handgun training is they'll give you a blank and see if you put a recoil on it sort of after you pull the trigger, which means you're anticipating something as opposed to the actual recoil happening. It's real challenging. And now we've got a shotgun, which I think we're going to go shoot some clays today, which I'm pretty excited
There you
about
go.
this afternoon. And again, that's its own level of challenge. Fuck, it's so hard to hit that thing in the air, and that's almost completely different because instead of holding still like you want to with the gun, you have to keep it moving the whole time. So man, there's so many different like levels of hunting and fishing. They all require all these skills, and so many of these things feel just lost.
Yeah.
I don't know. The only reason we can do any of this is because YouTube exists and because Netflix exists, and you can go learn some of these things, because I don't know anybody that could teach me these things at all.
Yeah. Well, it's dove season right here in Central Texas right now, as you're talking about shooting clays.
Mm-hmm.
Now go try to shoot a dove, because those dove, they dip and dive, change speeds on you.
Right.
And like you're saying, you can learn on Netflix. I'm trying to teach my little nephew right now. I took him with me last weekend, and he's all about his video games. And so trying to get him out there, I'm like, it's not like your gaming console. Like, you can't just like hold the crosshairs on it. With a bird flying, you got to be ahead of it, and your barrel has to keep moving with that bird. And so, yeah, bird hunting it's a whole different game.
Yeah, but I think I love that about hunting and fishing, that there is so much variety, and there's something that is obviously going to just like appeal to someone. It's like you, the first time you went out saltwater fishing, and then you're like, okay, I'm hooked on this now.
Yep.
Like this is a thing. Are you going to get a boat at some point? I feel like I've seen you talk about.
That's we're in talks right now. So the Texas Bay it's a whole different beast. And you got oyster reefs, and the tides, like it can go from a foot deep to an inch deep real fast. And so we're looking at the different types of models of boats and what we want to go with right now. I think this week while I'm down there fishing, I'm gonna try to get out with a couple guides and just go out on the different types of boats just to see how they handle stuff like that. But yeah, definitely a boat soon.
That's cool. We've been on the river here through Bastrop and some kayaks before, and I've seen some of those boats out there, and I think some people had some fan boats and different things like that, because I know it gets super low at points. Yeah. I honestly never even understood how you keep your engine in the water like when it's that low, or how you prepare for those different things. It's a whole thing I can't get into.
My coworker, he has a really nice boat, and I'm like, okay, once I get one, like, you're gonna have to go out with me for like a week and a half and just like teach me everything, because like I know nothing. I grew up around a lake, taking out friends' pontoon boats and bass boats, which I feel like you have to worry about too much about the shallow water, whereas at the bay, if you don't know what you're doing, it could be a bad situation real fast.
Is it all marked out though? I mean, that's what those buoys are for in theory, right?
Yeah, and then some people, they see like a new shallow spot, after a storm or something pop up. You'd have fishermen even just go put like a pole out and spray paint it red, just to kind of warn others or themselves so they know for next time.
And I feel like I've seen this, but tell me if this is a real thing or not. Don't most of the newer boats have like almost like a sonar system where they can read the depth of the water too and like warn you, or am I crazy?
Yeah, I think they come. I think Garmin makes the best one that most people have, or Simrad. I feel like that's like the new stock option on a boat is a depth finder, and like my coworker's boat, like it's almost instantaneous of like right where you're at.
That's
like
cool.
There's hardly any delay. It's crazy down there at the coast.
Yeah.
But yeah, a boat for sure. And then that kind of gets me into the next thing of we were talking about hunting and how most people aren't prepared for it. One thing I want to do once I get the boat is I want to start a thing where taking inner city or kids who would never get the chance to go fishing, I want to start something to take those kids fishing. Because, I fell in love with fishing. It's become an addiction and a passion for me. I feel like it's kind of like my job to pass that on.
That's cool. And to me, that's the best way to reach people, is to actually just get them out there with you, And it's like we talked about, people who live in a city and have no idea any of this exists.
Yeah.
Sometimes that requires means to get out here and see it all. And so that's cool that you're going to do that for people.
Yeah. fingers crossed. I'm making a couple of connections and friendships, within the industry as I'm going along, and hopefully, those will pay off later.
Yeah.
Because, what I would love to do is be able to get them out on a boat, take them fishing, show them how to fish, and then send them home with, like a backpack with a tackle box with lures, a little rod and reel combo, something like that.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That would kind of be the goal.
Yeah. How does one get started with saltwater fishing? Do you feel like wading is the way to get like into it?
Wading it's interesting because, you have the oysters, so you got to have a thick bottom boot. So if you're going to wade fish, it's going to require a little bit more money because you need like those. Most people go in tennis shoes, but if you get into a lot of oysters, it'll cut your tennis shoes up real fast.
Whoa.
So I would say like surf fishing. That's what a lot of guys do. You just take it's a bigger rod, and then you just go out to a beach type area, and you can catch a lot of fish. Like there are people who just do nothing but surf fish, to where you're casting out into the waves, and you get a lot of trout and redfish that we call them tide runners, and they just cruise the surf. I see a lot of people catch plenty of fish, from their tailgate. They just back up to a spot. In Texas, we have a lot of jetties, and some of them are like a mile and a half long. And so you can walk way out on these rocks, and you can catch tarpon. There's one of the big fish that I've seen people catch, but like giant bull reds out there. So I would say if you're going to get started saltwater fishing, look at, jetties first, because that's very much the same as, kind of lake fishing. You're on dry land. You're not worried about getting in the water. You don't really need anything other than a rod or reel, and you can fish with any type of bait, live bait, dead shrimp, whatever, plastics. So I would say if you're going to get started, definitely, try it on a jetty first. Make sure it's something you like.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the cheapest option.
That'd be a lot better for someone like me. I'm super afraid of sharks. I hate the idea of sharks and of like deep water around me and all these things. Like I'm so bothered by that stuff. I honestly don't know. Does that bother you at all, or do you just not think about it really?
You try to put it in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
So a couple months ago, I was out wading, and I take my kayak and I get into a spot that I want to wade, and then I'll get out of the kayak and kind of wade around. And there was something chasing mullet, which is kind of like a minnow fish, and something was chasing him around and blowing up on him. I'm like, oh, it must be a huge redfish. So I was casting at it, going through my entire tackle box, trying to find a lure that it would eat. Nothing. I was like, okay, well, I'll get back in the kayak. I'll move down a couple 100 yards, because if this fish is doing this, every other fish is gone in the area. And as soon as I like pulled my feet up into the kayak, 5-foot shark, and that's what it was. And I'm sitting there waist deep trying to catch this thing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what would I have done if I had actually caught that shark?
Right, that's a good question. What do? You just cut that line and say bye. Dang, dude. Yeah, see that would bother me greatly. But I think staying on shore, I'm definitely I consider myself a land animal, strongly land oriented.
Yeah.
So staying on shore sounds pretty good to me, man. Jeez. Well, what's the deal with the oysters? Help me on my ignorance here. Can you pick those up too? Can you fish for those? Because I would think that's
I don't know what. So there are a lot of regulation changes actually happening with the oyster fishing right now, because I think it's strictly commercial. But right now they're dealing with commercial being like overdone. And so a lot of new regulations are going into that right now, because they're these commercial fishing boats will get into an area and just strip it of everything. And they have to be a certain size and all that kind of stuff, but it's like no one's really watching them right now. But now they're about to go heavy on some regulations.
On commercial regulations.
Yeah.
That's weird. That's sort of the opposite of what you usually get. Like commercial's allowed, but personal is not. That's kind of odd. I wonder why it turned out like that.
Well, trout and I think even redfish even, they're not commercial. That's personal.
Right.
Only really. So, yeah, the oyster, it's I'm pretty sure it's just commercial. I don't know. I've never done all that. But yeah, it's crazy. You'll find some little islands out there that are just covered in like beautiful oyster shells and other seashells. And sometimes I'll get distracted and I'll quit fishing for like 30 minutes. I'm digging through shells.
Looking for souvenirs.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. That's fun, man. Oh, we have one of our guests leaving us now.
Got to go pick up the kiddo.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I had saved for you. I guess we kind of covered it. I was curious to know about your experiences on the delivery routes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's really cool, and I'm not sure that I've ever met anybody who actually does that job.
Yeah.
It's cool to put a face to that. I know I appreciate you guys. I feel like my stuff's always getting lost from USPS, and as a real capitalist, I'm in favor of private business being better at stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for doing
Yeah.
what you do there.
Well, it's funny. Like we have a neighborhood page on Facebook for the little community I live in, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe my UPS driver lost this," and like I kind of like that Homer Simpson like meme where he like hides in the hedges.
Yeah.
I'm like, hopefully no one knows I'm a UPS driver and doesn't yell at me.
Hey, Andrew, would you take a couple pictures for me? Thank you. Yeah, I've had so many packages get lost lately. It's really making me kind of sad. And it's hard for us because, being on the road, like I got a 2-week block. I need it to show up in that 2 weeks at the place I'm staying. And if it doesn't, then, I'm probably not ever going to get that package.
Yeah.
That's been a real adjustment. Like you take packages for granted when you live in one spot. And now I really don't, man. It's gnarly. Yeah, but I do feel like when I get USPS, like I'm always, if I'm on Amazon or something and it says UPS or FedEx or something as opposed to USPS, I'm like, it's actually going to show up. That's great. I love that.
Well, then I feel like the USPS, they have so many different buildings that it has to go through before it gets to a certain spot.
So it's the bureaucracy.
I guess.
Okay.
Like I'm about to hit the road right after this, and I'm like, I know I have a box of lures in the mail system somewhere.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, okay, when is that post office guy going to get here?
Yeah.
Or is it even going to come? And like I've already told myself, like it'll get here Monday, like as soon as I leave.
Yeah.
So.
Do you think drone shipping is going to take off and you're going to become a pilot at some point, or?
So UPS actually tried that, kind of like a pilot program, I guess, and it was like your normal UPS truck. On the top, it had a garage door that opened up, and it had like a landing pad for the drone. And then like you put a package in the drone's little carrier box, program in the address that it's going to, and then you programmed in the address that you were going to. And so the drone would take off, you'd shut the little garage door hatch, the drone would go deliver that package and then meet you at your next stop. And they tried it for like drivers out in the country, and I just don't think it worked.
No.
Like I feel like it had to be so specific, so spot on to get it to land right back in the truck or basket. But yeah, they emailed us some like videos of it, and a lot was like, that sounds cool.
Right.
But I deliver in Texas.
Yeah.
And I don't know how the country folk are going to take a drone flying over their house.
They're not going to like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about bird hunting.
For real. Did you get to use one, or it was just
no.
Okay. No. See, that'd be kind of cool to at least try it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's one of those industries that's like, man, it requires it requires inherently so many different like touch points. It requires human reasoning and the ability to make decisions and move things around. But then there's other parts of it that can be so well automated. It's all systems and barcodes and databases. It's going to be interesting to see like where that goes as a thing.
Yeah.
Amazon's trying to take over the world and just make it all drones straight from their warehouses, no people involved anywhere in the process. It's going to be weird, man. But it's like you said, I don't know how I'd take to a drone showing up at my address and being like, here.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's different than a person to me, but it feels like it. I don't know, man. Very weird. Very weird.
And I've always wondered, like, how is the drone going to know where to set it down, how to set it down?
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of the stuff that we ship now, it's well over 20 pounds. Like the size of the drone you would have to use. We deliver wine.
Yeah.
And, if it's like a 6 bottles, that gets up there in weight. How's a drone going to drop wine off?
Yeah.
That could be interesting.
Maybe it'll be the scary robotics, Stanford robotics things, like the creepy Black Mirror where it's like that dog that's chasing her and stuff. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, maybe it's something like that because we carry more weight. That's terrifying, dude. Yeah. So I think the moral of the story here, it's funny that there's that connection to the world of shipping is, try to be a little more prepared because the world's getting a little strange out there.
Yeah.
And maybe learn how to hunt, maybe learn how to, handle fresh water and store some food and stuff. Maybe it's not so crazy to be worrying about shit hitting the fan and, robots taking our jobs and also our freedoms. And maybe it's not so bad.
Well, I've been delivering a lot more stuff like bottled water. Now there's all the food deliveries. But I've also noticed that I started delivering a lot of like seed packets for like vegetable gardens.
Interesting.
I've been delivering a lot more stuff like that lately. I feel like people are starting to get prepared.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to see what I see when I deliver.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm like, okay, so come to you for vegetables later.
Yeah, I mean, we get most of our meat shipped now too. It's just a little easier for us, and it comes frozen, and it's great, and we can be really picky about like, we want the grass-fed beef, and sometimes it's kind of hard to get your hands on that from just anywhere. It's nice when we find like a local farm store that has big freezers full of meat. We always take advantage of that, but yeah, some of that you got to get shipped. I don't know, man. It's funny that you get a little bit of intel about what's happening.
Well, sometimes it's like I feel like I creep myself out because I feel like I know too much. Like I see someone out and about, like at H-E-B at the grocery store. And I'm like, I can look at my wife like, oh yeah, I know where they live. I can spout their address off like that.
Right.
I'm like, okay, that's a little creepy that I can see someone or see a vehicle that I've delivered to. I'm like, oh yeah, they live at such and such address. Yeah. I'm like, that's a little weird.
Yeah, there's an ethical code for you. Keep that information to yourself.
Yeah.
For whatever embarrassing things people have shipped to them, and it's getting funny all the different things you get shipped to you that you would always go and buy, and now it's like, nah, just get that shipped. Yeah, it's an industry we rely on quite heavily, so it's cool that you've made a career out of it and enjoy doing it. And I get it. Like, it sounds great, man.
Yeah.
Getting to just drive. Do you listen to stuff while you drive? Are you big on podcasts or audiobooks or anything like that?
So I used to be just music, but I think over like the past 2 years, like it's really podcasts,
Yeah.
Listening to, cause heck, I think over the last 2 years, kind of need more information about stuff, and sometimes it's nice just to hear people, especially on my route. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. Sometimes if people are at work, I don't see anyone all day.
Yeah.
I see dogs, which is awesome, but to hear another human's voice is good. So yeah, lately I've gotten into a lot of podcasts.
What do you like to listen to?
More fishing, obviously.
Yeah.
Which is fun. Like I found one guy, it's called the Skiff Wanderer. And so his podcast is kind of fun for me because I feel like that's kind of the boat I want to get into is a skiff, which can go real shallow. Get back on a top deck in the back and you push yourself through the shallows with a pole.
Cool.
Kind of old school style.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah.
I've seen those. That was on some Meat Eater episode where they were going for redfish. So I think I know what you're talking about. You kind of become a gondola driver at a certain point.
Yeah. Start singing French music,
Yeah, right.
Italian music, whatever.
Well, that's cool, man. Yeah, I can't drive without something going. I'm a big audiobook guy. Always have been, but I got to have something going.
Yeah.
I go crazy with just my own thoughts. We were listening. Weirdly, there was some dude on Jeopardy the other day because we're kind of Jeopardy dorks, who was talking about how his dream is to be a long haul trucker because he wants to just sit in silence for like 11 hours at a time. And I was like, there's no way.
Yeah.
Like, kill me. That's not happening. But I probably need to fix that about myself, to be honest.
Well, it's like one of the delivery places that I go to. It's a truck stop all the middle of I-10.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like where I start my day. But it's a rest stop for a lot of these, the long haul drivers that are on the road for 4 or 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
So they have the showers, they have the laundromat. Sometimes I've thought like, man, could I live in a truck taking showers at a gas station? I'm like, I don't think I'm not cut out for that life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. My grandpa did it for his whole career,
Mm-hmm.
and I also imagine that back in the day it was a little more social, because now when they pull over, it's just like anybody else. You can just have your whole world on your phone there.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the day, I think it was like, well, I'm going to get a meal and there's no one to talk to, so I'm going to talk to this guy,
Mm-hmm.
or I think it's probably changed, would be my guess.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was more of a connected profession at a certain point, and it's a little bit different now. It's a little scattered, and there's so many trucks on the road now.
Oh yeah. It's constant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and you see some of them. So I deliver to a Tractor Supply store also, and when they're unloading, like half the time those truckers, they don't even get out until they need something signed.
Mm-hmm.
The unloaders, they go in and out with the forklift to unload the truck while the truck driver's just chilling in the truck, hanging
Mm-hmm.
out.
Yeah.
And so I feel like you said, back in the day, it used to be a lot more social. You get out, probably didn't have gas or propane forklifts, had to do a lot of it by hand. I'm sure the truckers got out, and you had the diners back in the day for truckers
Yep.
to always go eat at.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
now it's fast food, get it, go.
Different world.
Yeah.
Different world. I could see it though in a weird way because I am such an audiobook guy. I can see having. I mean, I get this when we drive, obviously, and we do our long stretches where you listen to an audiobook for like a 6-hour, 8-hour drive. To me, it's pretty awesome actually. I like that kind of thing, but I don't think I could do it every day. And living in truck stops that'd be tough for me too. I'm such a homebody. I think that's why we did what we did, because I'm so much of a homebody that I'm like, if I'm going somewhere, the whole home is coming with me. Like I'm not gonna leave my house for any reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I had another thought on that. Now it's completely gone. Doesn't matter. I guess I'll bring up long haul trucking on a future podcast maybe. Do we pretty much do it? I think we did it.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
We got it. All right. I'm trying to think if there's anything else for the podcast listeners. We've been doing a whole lot of jiu-jitsu lately, but it's fall, so we're about to switch into hunting mode. We have one more work thing to do here in Texas, and then we're heading straight north for our bow hunting season this year, which is going to be really exciting. Andrea's going to be bow hunting too. If she successfully gets a deer before I do, I don't know what I'm going to do with my self-esteem. So we'll find out. Stay tuned for my unraveling. American Jiu-Jitera is still going on. Andrea's been posting a ton, going to a bunch of gyms. So if you like the jiu-jitsu stuff, make sure you're watching that. Cale, thank you for being on the podcast. It's good to get to meet you. To get to meet someone who is descended from this area. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Because we love Bastrop, man. So I hope you have fun on your vacation, catch something big. We're going to enjoy our times in Bastrop too. So thanks everybody for listening. We will see you on the next episode.